What's your best fire me, I fucking dare you moment from work? Worked for Radio Shack and always butted heads with the district manager. He wanted me to use these ridiculous sales techniques that might work in a big city, but were really pushy. The year he became RDM I won a contest for best salesman in the whole company, out of about 14,000 employees, and I did it without being pushy and forcing stuff on people. He still tried to get me to use these ridiculous techniques each month when he would visit, but after I won the contest I stopped sugarcoating it and would flat out tell him that's stupid, I'm not going to do it that way. Being pushy is the best way to talk yourself out of a sale. As a customer, when I'm approached by those types, I will almost always walk away, even if I need what they are selling. I'm an electrician. Boss son said my clothes are too dirty to wear to work. Told him these clothes were clean when I first wore them to work. Told him buy me new ones or fire me. That was a year ago, still wearing the same PVC glue stained clothes to work. Yay, we were told to tuck in our shirts and look presentable as it's 110 asterisk in the building and I have to wear long pants and cotton shirts. Told them I'll tuck my shirt in the minute I can sit in an AC office. Yay, that didn't get brought up again. I hate that look presentable bullshit. You're the boss, it's your job to look presentable. I'm the go get the work done guy. Wear clean clothes to work to play in a muddy ditch all day. Fuck off and let me work. My brother asked a customer to fill out a survey. He gets $5 if he gets all 5 stars. He received 5 stars in each category except appearance. When he asked why, the customer said he was covered in dirt. My bro was complaining because at the start of the visit he was clean. The dirt was from crawling around in their crawl space. Worked a job where I was the only one who knows how to take apart, clean, fix, and put all the equipment back together and do the weekly and monthly maintenance. Had a boss tell me one day that I was doing a poor job and not doing enough and that anyone could do it. If I didn't step up I would be fired, or else, as they had manuals for each piece of equipment. So that night I took apart all the equipment, weekly and monthly stuff too, cleaned them, and then just left it apart for them to figure out that morning. Then I turned off my phone after getting home for the entire day as I had the day off. When I turned it back on the next day I saw that I had initially received angry texts ordering me to return and put everything back together. This lasted an hour. Then texts saying I risked being fired. Then texts begging me to return. Then more texts trying to compromise with art. Then an apology before nothing else for the rest of the day other than that the head boss wanted to see me as soon as I came in the next day. And over half the stuff was still not put together, and what had been put together was put together haphazardly and would need to be taken out again then put back incorrectly. Was immediately asked to be seen by my boss and their boss to explain myself the moment I was seen entering. Once in the office I told them that if they weren't there to apologize then just fire me then and there, or drop it and let me put all the stuff back together. They looked at each other and then told me that I could get back to work. Boss never called me lazy again. First kitchen I worked in, they told me the more jobs I learned, the more I'd get paid. Came in basically knowing all of it anyway. 6 months later I had learned every job there except one spot. They told me if I learned that spot, I'd get a raise. I told them I could find a new kitchen. I was easily one of the best employees there, and that I was told the more I learned the more I'd get paid, and I still hadn't been given a raise. Head chef cracked and gave me a raise. I told him 50 cents wasn't enough. He was forced to give me another. 2 weeks after that, they fired the banquet chef's assistant. We had a lot of 300+ people events and told him to pick his new assistant. He immediately requested me. I told them I needed another raise. I was told no again. Again I said I'll find a new job. Came in the next day and put my 2 weeks in. Yup, found a job that quick. Wound up making more money in that kitchen than anyone beside the banquet chef and the head chef. That's how I wound up getting 3 raises in a month. Not exactly a fire moment, but worth a write-up. Back when I was in the army, I got to my first unit and was as usual hazed as the new guy. I was a timid private and my biggest goal was to not fuck up something because the staff sergeant was mean as fuck. Getting a little used to it, I noticed he liked to talk to the other sergeants about stuff, where a dick somehow enters the story. Man, one time in Iraq, I walked into a tent and saw a guy sucking a dick. One day I interrupted his conversation by saying, "You sure do like to talk about dicks." It didn't stop. I then kept a tally of how many times it happened, just by me overhearing it. I didn't even hover. I would then shout the tally as it happened. Low days were 7, high days were around 15. If anyone is wondering how I got away with this, here's how it went down. He yells and tells me to do push-ups. If I refuse, he writes me up. If I refuse to sign it, it goes to the first sergeant, who would want to tell their boss they forced him into a meeting because a private was aware of his dick obsession. I won. Wasn't physically at work, but it was on the phone. Day before, my mom is feeling bad, calling me at work and giving me updates. I finally convince her she needs to go to the and I tell her to stay put and that I will be there soon to take her. Of course, she insisted that I stay at work, but whatever, that's my mom. I'm fucking taking her to the BTW. Mom has history of bad health and issues and whatnot. I tell my direct manager I'm leaving, and she's like, fine, whatever. Make up the hours. Fine. Next day and my mom is still not great, but it's fine. I got her meds, but they still need to run other tests. So I decide to stay home with her and take care of her and run errands, medical related stuff, for her. I call out, leaving a message with our customer service desk, but soon after I get a call from a manager of a different department. We'll call her centimeters, asking why I called out. I tell her I need to take care of my mom. CMO, what's wrong with her? I'm sure she'll be fine at home. Me, I know. I left early yesterday to take her to the and she's still weak. Centimeters continues to try and convince me my mom is fine and I need to come in. I give in and tell her all the details. Centimeters is unrelenting and finally finished with the cherry on top. I'm sure your mom would rather you have a job to come back to. Well, no bitch, you don't know my mom. You don't know her health. You don't know anything. I know you're a mom, so that's surprising as hell for you to say. I hope your children find themselves in that situation with a shit manager, and I hope they use the same ideals you're preaching. I answered her with C, but I can go out and get another job. I can't go out and get another mom. I'm staying home today to take care of my mom. She said something about seeing me the next day in an attempt to end the convo and say bye. So I said yay, we'll see how she's doing, said goodbye and hung up. Felt great back quote, cause I'm normally a pushover, but not when it comes to my mom. I held firm and kept my composure, so she couldn't really say I was rude or anything either. But she was pieiced. 2004. Worked at a municipality department. One day the programmers update the work PCs and block pretty much everything and anything. No internet at all. No authorization for installing anything. All games removed from Windows. They even removed the calculator function for some reason. Then the supervisor started moving coworkers around, and my entire team was dispersed across a gigantic building, for no reason. We were the top team in terms of results. The supervisor simply hated our guts for some reason. So me and one of the coworkers tried to devise some way to have communication without having to travel for 5 minutes each time across the building and down a floor just to get to each other's desk and ask a simple yes or no question. We do this during our lunch break. Our supervisor butts in and asks what we are doing. We explain we are trying to save time and maximize communication and results. The supervisor, who doesn't like us anyway, says we should get back to work and quit trying to communicate through unauthorized means. Okay. We simply stopped trying to install Messenger on our phones. One day later the supervisor is looking for my coworker. I don't know where he is. I say so. Well then contact him through your Messenger program, the one you told us to quit installing. Yes, we gave up on that, on your orders. She tried to get me fired for refusing to obey basic orders. I explained the situation to her superior. He let me get back to work and told me to ignore her from then on. I moved to a better post a few months later because she made my life unbearable from that day on. And I finally went and told the upper floor they'll either move me elsewhere or I quit. I'm a speech therapist. I work in a skilled nursing facility. For the most part, they all suck. This is no exception. But the place I used to work, the boss was a scumbag. To the extent that the entire rehab staff signed a letter asking to get him fired. He was basically forced out. I eventually left and came to my current job. I swung by the rehab gym and saw his ass sitting in my current boss's office. I kind of froze in shock. I thought he was interviewing for a job there. So I went to the boss at the time and told her flat out that if he got hired, I was walking out immediately. She got a stunned look on her face and quickly assured me that he wasn't working there. That was my first time drawing a line in the sand like that. I was 17 and working part-time at a fast food restaurant. Someone wrecked the men's restroom, shat in the urinal, rubbed shit all over the wall. The manager came out and told me to clean it. I refused. She threatened to fire me, to which I laughed in her face and told her you can clean it yourself, or you can lose an employee and still clean it yourself. I don't need this job. Needless to say, I wasn't fired and I didn't clean that up. I still laugh thinking about it. Openly typing up replies to Reddit posts with boss standing behind me. It's amazing what you can get away with by just making eye contact and staring them down. I posted the story on another AskReddit about calling my manager a cunt and walking out. Her higher up called me in, and I decided to at least give my side of the story the next day. It became evident she didn't care much, so I told them it didn't matter, and I quit anyway. In the best reversal of a classic movie line, the supervisor said you can't quit because you're fired. Literally as I was walking out. Thanks for the unemployment. My 22nd birthday, I was working at a bookstore in the King of Prussia Mall. My college girlfriend of 4 years had broken up with me earlier that night. It was around 7 to 8 p.m. of a busy weekend night when I noticed a pretty awful smell. I glanced over at my manager working the other register and could tell he smelled it too, but we continued to power through a line of antsy customers. Once we cleared the line, a woman came up to me red-faced and laughing in shock and embarrassment. She said she had walked into one of the aisles to find a girl about 8 years old taking a crap on the floor. I looked over at the manager, who clearly had heard as well, and said, "Dave, you can go ahead and fire me, but I'm not cleaning that up." Worked for a food vendor that was traveling out of state to go to a jam band type weekend music festival. Basically just serving up greasy food to intoxicated festival goers into the wee hours of the morning. No problem. It was an 8-hour drive, had 6 people in 2 vehicles absolutely stuffed with all their kitchen gear. Got there, set up, and it was immediately clear by the size of the crowds that we might be understaffed. No worries, we are all good workers. Fast forward to Saturday night, around midnight. We've already been doing non-stop runs to the nearest town, which wasn't close, for more food, having been completely unprepared for how much they could sell there. Zero sign of the party slowing down. We've been selling food since 9 AM and we are all beat, having been understaffed because of the need for constant store runs for food. The front end girl's brain is scrambled from doing math and handling money non-stop all day, so we put her on the fryer and I take over the front end, taking money and calling out orders. They cold just closed down, but it'd be pretty dumb to not make thousands of dollars per hour if you're able to, and at this point we had a fresh truckload of food to sell. We are stressed and tired, but we are pushing through it. A couple hours of this, and I'm really wishing I could smoke some weed to take the edge off and zone into the work and power through my exhaustion. I had brought a couple joints with me, but there was no way we could spare anyone long enough for me to sneak into the crowds to puff, and I hadn't had a break all day. It's around 2 to 3 AM, the music is still going full force, and the party is peaking. As far as the eye can see is a sea of inebriated people partying as hard as possible, openly consuming and sharing drugs and booze, free of all inhibition. The guy I was working for knew I was a weed smoker, but I always kept it out of sight, so it was never an issue. But I was reaching my breaking point, and it was time for me to smoke some weed. So I jumped up after a transaction and came over to him on the griddle. "I need to smoke some weed." Shocked look. "You what? You mean now?" "No way dude, you cannot leave." To which I replied, "I can smoke it right here. Who the fuck cares? Look at this place." He looked at me for a moment, as if I had gone insane, followed by a hot flash of anger, then looked around, and began to take in the magnitude of the debauchery that was occurring around him, a miasma of dancing and or naked people ecstatic to the point of hysteria, doing drugs off of each other's bodies, the wildest party I had, at that point, even seen in my life. He looked back into my eyes with a serious but steadfast gaze, gave me a great nod of approval, and went back to his grilled cheese sandwiches. I put on my sunglasses, lit up my doobie, and starting handling the money. My co-workers looked over at me in awe, looked back at my boss, who was busy with the griddle, and just went back to work. I felt pretty gangster with a jammer hanging out of my mouth, getting baked while processing handfuls of cash, and screaming out the orders. It was never spoken of again. I was the warehouse/delivery manager for a furniture company about 15 years ago. All of us delivery/warehouse workers smoked, we'd except one guy, and he was a pot Nazi. We all knew this, so we kept it fairly well hidden from him. One day he smelled weed in the truck and told the store manager. The store manager called me to his office and asked what I thought would happen if he drug tested all of us. I told him he'd have one guy left working for him. Needless to say, he didn't drug test us, and that narc quit not long after. Worked for an online marketing firm doing SEO reports and optimization. This was my first job, so I didn't understand the concept of start working slow, so you have room to improve. Well, I was working at 100% and doing well. One week, my girlfriend of 4 years broke up with me, and I was taking it roughly. I was kinda scatterbrained and slowed down a little bit. I told my boss this, and he was like, okay, we'll try not to stay like this for long. So 3 days go by, and I'm better, and working 100% again. So like a week later he calls me in, and says I need you to do almost all of your co-workers' work, because you're better at it than he is, and he's gonna do something else now. Sure, I'll do my best, but I can't make any promises I'll get it all done. So I'm now working 2 people's jobs in the time of one. I finish 1 3/4 of the work and then get called into his office. He's claiming I fucked him over and I slowed down for too long. So I say fire me then. I'm tired of doing all this extra shit and I promise you need me. Well, I got fired. 2 weeks later, he calls me up and asks me to come back. Says he can't do all of the work. I tell him good, maybe you won't treat your employees like shit next time. Went out of business like a month later. I was 1 out of 3 dishwashers for a hotel plus restaurant, so there was a lot of work for us. One of the guys never did any work, and the other guy only worked early morning shifts as he had multiple jobs. I finished all my duties, walked outside for a smoke break. Manager of the restaurant area came out and threatened to fire me if I didn't go back inside right then and finish the dishes. I told him what his predicament would be if he fired me. He stormed off. Came back in 10 minutes later and there were maybe 3 dishes to do, and I was the only one working then, so there was no way another dishwasher did them. I have a couple stories about this guy, most from other people's experience while working for him.